Okay, thanks for coming, everybody. It's an intimate group, which is that's what I like. Just so you know, per statute, we have to film these public hearings, and they're going to be posted on the Lieutenant Governor's website. So anything you say will be recorded, and then at the end, we'll also get a public comment period. If you want to give a comment, we ask you just give up and stand up, give your name, just so it's on record as well. So I just wanted to let you know that it is being recorded today as well. So my name is David May with the Count My Vote Initiative. We also have Taylor Morgan, the Executive Director, here as well, along with Jay Cowsell. So we're here to answer any questions you have. We do have the presentation here for the public hearing for the Count My Vote ballot initiative. What we've been doing in the past today and yesterday is we've been going through the slides. There's about 12 of them. Anybody who has a question kind of germane to the slide, we're letting them ask questions. Anytime you have a kind of a comment just about the process or anything like that, we kind of have you wait to the end. We'll give you a chance to comment at the end. So everybody can just respect that process. We appreciate that. So, excuse me, my throat. So the mission of Count My Vote is we believe every vote should count. So Count My Vote is a nonpartisan, broad-based effort to improve participation in all elections. We're a 501c3 that is registered as a PIC, or Political Issues Committee of the state of Utah. Basically, it started out, you may be familiar with our 2013 initiative. It started out, and then due to a compromise with the legislature in 2014, SB 54 was passed, which started out as ended up with a dual track system. You can either get on the ballot through gathering signatures, or you can get on through the caucus convention system with the parties. We actually really like SB 54, but due to constant threats of lawsuits, which are going on right now, and constant pressure from the legislature through threat of disbanding SB 54, we decided to relaunch our initiative and just take it to the people and let them decide about this new process. We believe with direct primary elections, which is what this initiative will do, it will facilitate greater participation. It will improve candidates' access to the primary election ballot. It will preserve the power of political party members to select their nominees. It will give all party voters a voice versus just the delegates. Reduce the potential for fraud and election irregularities, and it will remove systemic obstacles to participation. Yeah?
Preserve the power of political party members to select their nominees. Would you explain that?
Yeah, so this ballot initiative, we'll kind of talk about this a little bit more. This ballot initiative will only affect partisan elections, so partisan primary elections. So right now, you can get on the ballot through the signature process or through the caucus convention system. So with what we're proposing, you'll get on through, we'll talk about this in the next slide.
Oh.
In fact, let's just go to the next slide right now. So we'll answer your question. So we're not proposing to ditch the caucus convention system. We can't do that considering the Republican primary, Republican Party, Democratic Party, they're all private organizations. But what we are proposing is the way to get on the ballot will be only through gathering signatures, which goes to the point of giving all party voters a chance to nominate candidates to get on the ballot and have their voice heard that way. So under our system, all candidates will collect signatures through only party voters or only registered party members. After that, if they receive at least 1% signatures of their registered party members for that district or that statewide office or wherever it is they're running for, they'll then move to the primary election. If no candidate receives at least 35%, then they'll move to a runoff from the top two vote getters in the state. The caucus convention system will still remain. That's the way they'll be used to conduct important party business, as well as potentially do a party endorsement for certain candidates that they would choose to do. Did that answer your question now?
I thought I understood this, but I'll have to admit you were confused.
I'm sorry. What can I do to clear that up for
No
you?
longer access to primary election ballots, still endorsement.
So right now, there's a dual track system. You can either get on through the gathering signatures
Yeah,
or through the
I got
caucus
that.
convention system. Under our initiative, if it passes, you will no longer be able to access the ballot through the caucus convention system. It will only be through gathering signatures.
So everyone has to do this.
Everyone will have
Okay.
the signatures. Yeah, I'm sorry if that wasn't clear enough.
I got it. Okay, yeah, I know. I got confused.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. Is that a waiver question? Okay, perfect. So again, I think we've already touched on some of this. The Count My Vote Citizens Initiative would implement a direct primary election, so not an open or a blanket primary. So what that means is it would only be party voters that would be able, and registered party members that would be able to sign a petition for someone. And again, it would only be party people that would be able to participate in the primary. So you may have seen in places like California where party affiliation doesn't matter. Anybody, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, doesn't matter. They're all on the primary election ballot. That wouldn't be the case under the system. You'd have a Republican primary, Democratic primary, so on and so forth. Yes, ma'am.
So you have somebody checking?
So yes, that's a good point. Yes, so thank you. So when you go to lieutenant, so depending on the race, if it's like a multi-county race or a statewide race or a congressional race, all those signatures are verified by the lieutenant governor's office. They're verified to make sure they're a registered voter, that they're a registered party member, and all that. If it's a county race or a district that resides just within that county, and the county clerks are verifying those same things. But thank you for pointing that out. Failed to mention that. Again, I mentioned that the direct primary election only impact Utah's partisan primary elections. Again, this would have no impact on any election that's not a partisan election, for example, like a municipal election, where there's no partisan affiliation at all. And the Utah political parties would remain free to choose and hold open or closed primary elections. We don't have the ability to touch that at all. So if the Republicans want to remain their primary election wants to remain to be closed, only Republicans, they're free to do that. The Democrats currently have theirs open to Republicans, unaffiliated voters, and Democrats. They're free to do that as well. Yes, sir.
If I understand correctly, the proposal affects the primaries then to decide who will be the party candidates.
That's correct.
In November.
That's correct. Did I see a hand over there, ma'am? Or was I?
Well, I was kind of confused, but I think,
You got it.
so you're saying like, we can still have our caucus convention system going on?
Yeah, the caucus convention and
Have our
yeah,
own.
the caucus
election.
convention system will remain. It just won't be a path to the actual primary ballot.
Why would you do it?
So what's the point of it?
It would be to conduct party business,
So
for
what's the point
example.
of saying that?
Yeah.
If you're
I just
saying
wanted to
you're
clarify. Yeah.
Open or closed primary elections, you're getting a nominee, but that nominee does not go on the ballot.
Not unless they've got their signatures.
So yeah, there's
You can
two.
endorse, you can endorse.
They can endorse, they can conduct party business, like for example, changing bylaws, the conduction of party chair elections, things of that sort. But as far as any
You're being
candidates,
generous.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
But if I'm a Republican, someone who's a Democrat, the day of the primary, become a Republican and run as a Republican.
The day of the primary, they would have to go through the actual,
The day,
the filing, you mean?
yeah.
They would have to, if they wanted to, they legally could, but they'd also have to collect, and we'll get through some numbers here in a second, signatures from 1% of, however many
Yeah.
Republicans.
But
So
there's
that many
still-
Republicans would have to say that they're a Republican.
They are
Be
not
okay with
someone who has the same values as the Republican Party necessarily.
that. That would be up to the Republicans that decide to nominate them or not via signature. Yes, sir.
So I understand it's going to be called Count My Vote on the ballot.
I'm not exactly sure the names. Taylor, do you know how that would appear on the ballot?
The actual title is written by Legislative Research and General Counsel. That's written by the the legislative branch if we qualify for the ballot. Yeah.
So whose votes weren't counted in the last election?
Well, we believe that right now delegates via the caucus system are making a lot of decisions for voters, and we'd like to open it up to all party members to make that
So,
decision.
well, no, in the last election, whose votes weren't counted?
Well, you can make an argument through the caucus convention system that through the nomination process that we'd like to open that up to all party voters, not just delegate voters.
It wasn't.
Not through the caucus convention system, it wasn't. Yes,
All the
ma'am.
voters that you see here,
No, all party voters.
right, they're not here, but we are, and we educate ourselves. We're the delegates. We're the ones that educate ourselves. What you're talking about are the ones that just vote for the name they heard most often.
I'll have to agree to disagree on that. Yes, sir.
I'm actually from Sutherland County. As you may know, it's as far as landmass goes, it's very large. Residential wise, it's very small. So where I'm looking at it is far as delegates go, I come from a very small town called LaSalle, and we have our own delegation there. And we had, whatever, we gathered together, we voted, so we had an actual delegate to represent what our views were against what the larger population, say Wasatch Front is. So as far as I'm seeing what you guys are proposing here, it's the majority being Wasatch Front. So how is this helping me?
Well-
Making my vote count as far as the caucus.
Are you referring to like statewide elections or?
Statewide elections, yes.
So right now, the delegates are portioned out, you have to win 60% of caucus, or convention, correct? To get, to be the nominee into the caucus convention system. Right now, 70% of delegates are portioned out along the Wasatch Front. So theoretically, you could win all the delegates along the Wasatch Front and still be the nominee. There's enough
So
delegates.
my vote don't count?
No, I'm just saying, under the current system, you could theoretically, what you're saying is you could never go down to where you live and you still secure the nomination just along the Wasatch Front under the current system. I believe that if you're a serious candidate, you'll go wherever to get votes. You want to sit along the Wasatch Front, you want to sit along the populated areas.
So how is this any different than the people trying to get rid of the electoral college?
I don't believe this is a direct primary election. This has nothing to do with popular vote or
It's basically the
presidential
same
election.
principle.
This won't affect presidential election at all.
Well, no, it's the same principle.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with the caucus.
I'm gonna move. Yeah, let me move on to the next slide. So maybe you guys can see some numbers here. We've already talked about this. It would implement direct primary election, collect signatures from registered Utah voters, require a number of ballot signatures. We've already kind of talked about this, so I'm just going to go to the next slide. The intent of the 1% threshold is to limit non-serious candidates. So we've actually talked about this. So the 1% has come about to limit non-serious candidates. To make it so if you're actually serious about running, you actually do have to pass, or not pass, but gather signatures from enough party members so it's not just anybody can access the ballot. But we don't want to make it too high where, it was a barrier for people to enter, and get on the ballot. Yes, ma'am.
It sounds to me when you say a serious candidate versus a non-serious candidate means money.
Not necessarily money.
Usually it does.
I don't believe that at all. For example, if you look down here, and there'll be some more numbers on the bottom there. I was looking at this slide where a Republican for statewide office would need 6,514
Is that like
signatures.
governor,
That would be governor, U.S. Senate,
auditor?
state auditor, state attorney general, state treasurer. Any statewide office would need that many signatures. So that's how many 1% of all Republican voters in Utah. And say for a Democrat, it'd be 1,595 because it's 1% of how many registered Democrats there are in Utah.
So it's registered voters, not those who actually voted?
Excuse me, yes, it's registered party voters. So it's based on
So
Republicans.
you have to
and
be
Democrats.
registered and you have to prove you voted last time?
No. You don't have to be a voter. Excuse me, you have to be an active voter. So it would be, if I'm a registered Republican, I'm fine. Whether I vote in the last election or not doesn't matter.
Where we moved away, died?
Yeah, well, they have to be alive, but yes. Yes, sir.
How long does it have to be after they switch their registration before they can legally sign the petition?
You could sign it. I mean, as long as the registration hits before the signatures are turned in,
So really, any Democrat could change to Republican and sign it.
or vice versa, if they would like to. I mean, it's under statute, yes. As long as I want to go in and say I'm a Republican or say I'm a Democrat, I have the ability to do that.
You don't see a problem with that?
That's the way the statute is currently written. And that's the way the parties have currently agreed to do it as well. They allow anybody to be a party member.
Let's keep going.
Okay, perfect. So this example, here's some examples for statewide, sample congressional district, sample Senate district, House, and then there's sample county district, county election as well. For Republican and Democrat, just to give you an example of how many signatures they would each have to gather for that example district.
Now, just a second.
No, I'm not going to, I'll stay here.
That doesn't make any sense. Utah County, 1% of 257,000 is 140. I'm confused, I'm sorry.
Yeah, which one are you looking at? Sorry?
The bottom one, the very, very bottom one.
Yes.
So run those numbers for me.
So this is just total registered voters here.
Okay.
This is breakdown by Republican, breakdown by Democrat.
Oh, I see.
And then, yeah.
Sorry.
The discrepancy
Oh.
there, because the total between those two parties will be less than the total registered, because the second largest group of voters in Utah are unaffiliated,
Yes.
Right.
but they cannot nominate
They can't
party
sign it.
candidates,
It's not
right?
signed. It has to be registered party voters only.
And if you register 100 more, does that number go up, or is there a cutoff date?
You know, I believe there's a cutoff, if I remember correctly.
You have to turn it in, like on a multi-county, 2 weeks before state convention,
Yeah.
2 weeks before county convention, so they have the time.
But the question was, is if I
Yeah.
go door to door
If
and I
I
register
remember correctly, and Taylor,
Republican.
maybe you'll know this
Yeah.
better than I will. I believe the
Yeah.
lieutenant governor issues X, there's this many registered voters in, at this certain time.
Yeah, they provide
Then
a,
it's
Oh,
this 1%, this is how many you have to get. I believe it's just a constantly moving target.
Okay.
yeah,
Got it.
and candidates can register new voters as they seek nomination too.
But
So
the
that
number,
number
but the
could
number.
And that, but that
up.
doesn't impact, the lieutenant governor's office takes a fixed picture in time
Okay.
at the candidate filing opening, and then those are the set numbers.
House 74, that's Washington County, right?
Yes.
So there's almost 23,000 voters. Republicans are almost 13,000, so the number, what is that?
130, you're looking at the 130 number, or you're looking at?
Yeah, what is that?
That would be how many
1%.
signatures you would need to gather to get on the ballot for the primary.
1% of 12,974.
Yeah, I mean, that, exactly, 1% of the 12,974.
They round up though.
Still, that's a rather low threshold.
Yeah, well, I'm stunned, that's
And they
so
could-
different than what I
And
thought.
they could register people to sign
Yes.
as well.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Try and give me some background. What has happened that you guys feel the need to go about it this way
Yeah.
versus the way we've done it in the past?
Yeah, I think we already talked about it at the beginning, you may have missed it. I'm just saying. So originally we had our ballot initiative in 2013 to do the Count My Vote initiative, very similar to this. There's been a few tweaks to it, but basically same concept. We have the SB 54 compromise right now, which is the dual path, which is either get on the ballot through signatures. It's not based on percentages, it's just based on thresholds, depending on the office, or through the caucus convention system currently. Right now, SB 54, we're not opposed to it. Count My Vote struck a deal with the legislature to implement SB 54. But right now, there's been lawsuits and there's been threats from the legislature to overturn SB 54. So we decided to take our initiative and send it to the people to let them just make the ultimate decision on it. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Yes,
I-
ma'am.
In answer to his question,
Yes.
I believe the initiative came about because we dumped Bennett. And it's preserved the candidate, so we don't dump Hatch. That's my,
Okay, thank you. Yes?
So what are the current signature requirements through SB 54?
They're based, so they're not percentage based. The only one that's percentage based is county, and I believe it's 2%.
Yeah.
The other ones, like for statewide, is 28,000 signatures.
It's a number.
It's a number. It's just a
Okay.
fixed number, like 7,000 for U.S. House, things like that. And those came about because originally unaffiliated voters were allowed to vote in a Republican primary and sign signature nominations, petitions. And that was taken to court, and that was ruled by Judge Nuffer that wasn't allowed. Judge Nuffer actually said that the signature thresholds are too high if it weren't for the caucus convention system. So that's why to this initiative we have gotten rid of those barriers, issued those thresholds, and just gone with a straight percentage based.
Why'd you pick 1%?
A lot of our neighbors go anywhere from between 1% and 3%, and again, that goes to we want to make it so the ballots are accessible to candidates, but we also want to make it so it's just anybody can go. We want to make it, a serious test to it as well. Yes, sir.
Is there currently a signature requirement for someone seeking to run unaffiliated for a given office?
You talking about for the general election?
Yes.
Yes, but I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but I know there is one.
I think it's 300
It's like 300
statewide, I believe. For a state, no, 300.
300 signatures?
I think for a statewide office. This language doesn't touch that.
Yeah.
That all remains as it is.
This would only affect partisan primary elections. This would not affect the general election at all. Yes, sir.
Are you willing to disclose your donors?
Yeah, they're all online. So our original donors for 2013 was filed with the Political Issues Committee of Alliance for Good Government. That has been closed, but the financial disclosures are all still there. The new pick is now Count My Vote. So you can go online to disclosures.utah.gov on Lieutenant Governor's
I
website.
understand two of the board members there, or your candidate, or any others?
It's a very bipartisan initiative. We have people like former First Lady Norma Matheson, Salt Lake County Mayor Ben McAdams, also former Governor Mike Levitt. We have Gail Miller, former Lake Governor Norm Baker was also behind this as well. So it's a very bipartisan
So it's what
initiative.
the people with deep pockets want, is what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
It's what the people with deep pockets want, is what you're saying?
No, not at all. This is a citizens initiative. We have to gather 100 and almost 115,000 signatures statewide, so.
Gail Miller?
Yeah.
That's a deep-
Yeah, she's heard me.
Any other questions before we move on to the next slide?
Let me add to that, David. We, as part of the hearings, statute requires us to file a financial disclosure report 3 days before the hearing. So that report was filed and it's available right now to view at disclosures.utah.gov. When you go there, there's a search bar to search. Just type in Count My Vote and then you should see our pick there. And then you can see all of our donations and expenditures to date.
What was the old name? I missed it.
It was Alliance for Good Government.
That was our 2013. It's a pick. It's called the Political Issues Committee. That's what an initiative by state law is required to organize and file. So we had closed that one, and so we opened a new one for this initiative.
But the reports still are available.
Yeah,
on the
they're all
website.
available online
Does
still.
the money from the old one transfer to the new one?
No, because we spent it all. Yeah,
There was no money.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You want to hit that for me?
Oh, is it frozen up?
Freeze up? It's not very intelligent.
What'd you do to the PowerPoint, David?
For some of those.
Here, let me see that real quick.
Yeah.
Froze up?
Froze up and starts doing stand-up.
They have to stay within the park.
While you're trying to get it to work,
Yeah.
can you explain to me how the primary election works with 10 candidates?
So,
Or,
yeah,
you know,
so-
a ton of candidates.
Right now, under this initiative, it would force a runoff. So if nobody gets 35%, the top two vote getters would go to an automatic runoff in this
How's that?
election. It would be a by-mail runoff. Anybody in the, whatever office they're running for, whether it's, like say it's Congress, for example, anybody within the congressional district would vote between the top two vote getters from the previous election.
Does it outline the dates and the structure of that?
It would, yeah. It's all in
Is
the,
it like a month after, 2 months?
I forget the exact date. You know when that would take effect, Taylor?
Well, so we have to count. So after the original primary, right, there's a canvas period, a reporting period, a challenge and certification period. All of that happens, I think that takes up about 10 to 14 days after the primary election. And so then if no one candidate gets 35% or more, the top two go to that by-mail runoff. And so then, I don't know exactly the date, but those ballots would go out. I think it's about 30 days or so.
And who
after
pays for that? The
the primary
county?
election day. What now?
Who pays for that?
So that would be, we have a fiscal impact
Oh.
statement here we'll get to.
The cycle.
Yeah, so we basically, the runoff could potentially be an entirely new election cycle, and so it could cost,
Yeah.
it could cost a bit, and so we have a fiscal estimate on that.
Because we don't, the counties are paying for our third congressional district one now.
Right, yeah.
that's-
And so our fiscal estimate is, it's all-inclusive statewide, even for the county, because counties administer elections, right? It includes all expenses statewide, including counties. So we'll
Yes,
get
sir.
to that.
So, maybe it's just because I'm simple-minded here, but what is the difference between gathering signatures opposed to having a caucus where you gather and you vote to elect a delegate representative?
Yeah, so the difference between is, so the signature gathering process, the candidate would, or the campaign would go to the, let's say they want my signature, for example. They would come to my door, I would sign, and then I'm personally nominating that candidate to go, immediately go on the ballot. The difference between that and the caucus convention system is I'm going to my neighborhood caucus, I'm electing a delegate, and then the delegate is actually nominating that candidate. So there's actually, you could call it a barrier if you wanted to, or a middleman between that, me and the candidate.
So,
Yes,
do you
sir.
consider it the same way with legislators being a middleman between you and building actual laws?
Not at all. I think this
How is
is,
it?
because this is actual representative, the legislature is the representative.
So is the delegate.
So, Sienna,
But this
It's a
is,
local level too.
yes, you could argue that, but the argument with the Count My Vote initiative is we're opening up this process to all party voters to pick that representative. And the current caucus convention system is I'm picking a delegate to pick that representative. So again, Count My Vote would not eliminate the caucus convention system. They would still be able to do important party business. It's not actually put candidates on the ballot. Political parties can utilize the caucus convention system to endorse candidates. And then here's the fiscal impact statement. So,
Whoa.
GUMB proposed this initiative result in total fiscal expense of up to $3.35 million, and we have up to bolded because that would be the essentially worst case, as in every single county, every single election, every single district resulted in a runoff election. Every 2 years, including costs of runoff elections, and then the additional primary elections for signature verification was the miscellaneous cost of $50,000. In addition to costs of posting information regarding the proposed initiative, and just, statewide newspapers, printing additional pages, voter information pamphlets, estimated $30,000 in one-time funds.
Does the next slide explain where that money's coming from?
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, who's what?
If it does, that's fine.
So this will be our last slide, but essentially that would be an appropriation by the legislature.
And what if we don't do it?
What if we don't do?
Appropriate.
It would be a state. This one would be a state law. The legislature would need to fund it.
So, are you comfortable with taking money from education to fund that? I mean, where do we take it from?
Yeah.
I mean, is it income tax? Is it property tax? Is it?
That would be
you know?
that would be totally up to the legislature to decide where the money is appropriated from. And
Okay.
So there isn't money to allocate for this. There isn't.
Sorry.
They want us to spend more money on education, so we're going to spend all this money?
I don't know.
I don't think you have to fund it if you don't want to.
Well, and how do you even fund it if you don't know? Like, it could be 3.35, but it could be.
So again, elections vary all the time, and part of the provision in this was this could alter, this could change depending on elections or candidates, or excuse me, voters' behavior. Essentially, meaning that sometimes you have a runoff, sometimes you don't, and that's essentially a varied thing every year. We don't know whether we're going to have a primary election with the current system.
Well, if you want to open this up to 50,000 people and they all want to run, what do you expect?
Do you have a comment or question back to that?
Yeah, so with, he's saying that they have to fund it, so I mean, I guess her vote doesn't count now?
Everybody's vote counts. So again, this is the public hearing portion, and then I think maybe we'll switch to public comments unless anybody has any actual questions about the process or anything. Yes, sir.
Did you post the schedule for filing and so forth? Maybe I wasn't here first one.
Filing for like candidates?
Yes, filing deadline.
Yeah,
because I can imagine this might affect the calendar.
Yeah, so we've been talking closely with the county clerks and lieutenant governor's office about that. It wasn't in the slide deck. And Taylor, do you know the filing deadlines on those?
Let's see, candidate filing is October 1st. And then the deadline for candidate filing is March 1st.
Have you tried to do this legislatively?
Legislatively?
That would be
Yeah.
SB 54.
Yeah, SB 54 was the legislative path.
SB 54 doesn't get rid of the caucus path. It just gets the
That's
signature
correct.
path.
And so
have you-
essentially SB 54 was the closest we could get to this. And now it's now being challenged.
But-
So as far as this actual one, we attempted it a couple of years ago, and the closest we got was SB 54.
And personally, let me speak to that. I've been a delegate, I've been my precinct chair. I really like SB 54. I like the dual path. I like a lot of things about the caucus convention system. I would prefer just to keep that as it is. But the problem is, it's under constant attack. Legislatively, legally, politically, nonstop political attacks. The Weber County Republican Party wouldn't even allow signature gatherers at their convention. So it's just untenable. And so we made the decision to Count My Vote that now's the time, put the issue before the voters and let them decide how they want to nominate their candidates. So that's where we are now.
So when you say maybe you tried, did you say you tried? Is that? To do it legislatively?
Taylor could probably speak more to that.
Yeah, we worked with the legislature for years before filing. We even worked with the parties to try to raise the threshold, and the parties refused to do anything. And so we moved forward in 2013. We then worked out the compromise because the actual original, very first version of our language back in, I think, 2012 was a dual path, was SB 54 essentially. That it wasn't tenable at the time for an initiative, so we went with the direct primary model, but ultimately we came back to SB 54, which we still really like. You may have seen that quote in there from Governor Levitt. I mean, even that is our preferred method. We like both of those paths, but the party keeps suing and appealing, and legislators keep threatening to undo and repeal it. And so we think it's just time to put it before the
But
voters.
don't you think that the legislature is, representative? Like, they're representing constituents, if anybody is.
They're representing delegates.
Maybe, or
But
maybe
the
they're.
delegates are represented.
I disagree. Delegates represent a small percentage of party voters who go to caucus.
I mean,
That's
they have to get
part of the problem. Yeah.
Are you a paid volunteer?
What?
Are you-
I am paid, yeah. I'm paid by Count My Vote, and you can see how much I'm paid at the disclosures website.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are the voters who are going to be voting on this going to be educated on what's going on here?
On
Why I'm
the
wondering-
ballot initiative?
So we're having these meetings, and I noticed on the list, a few of them are like 3 o'clock on a weekday.
So-
You guys always say, no, hang on, you guys always say that the caucus night is inconvenient for a lot of voters. That's the most convenient time of the week. These are at inconvenient times, and you're expecting the voters to be educated at these things.
So we're holding the public hearings in person. We're posting this on our website. I believe it's already there. And then all of these, I think you may have missed me say at the beginning, but all of these will be filmed and then posted on the Lieutenant Governor's website for everybody to view. So all the content.
They don't view them, but they still get to vote on them.
That's up to the voters to decide.
Yeah, because you call it Count My Vote, and they don't know what it's about. That's not, that's not honest.
You asked how they're going to be informed. I just gave you some examples of how. I think we're ready to move on to the comment period. So everybody will have 2 minutes if you'd like to make a public comment for the record. We just ask that you state your name. Taylor will pass around.
We don't have a mic.
mic, so I guess Taylor will just time you.
But we do have, if you want to, you don't have to, but if you'd like to come up front for your comment, then we can actually get you on camera. If you'd prefer to stay where you are and stand, that's fine too. But if you'd please state your name, where you're from, for the public record, that'd be great.
Okay, my name's Ed Ritt, I'm from Price, Utah. I'd like to point out this has already been done before in the state, basically. In 1937, we did away with the caucus system because of low participation, around 30%. And following that, it was rescinded in 1947 because participation had dropped to 10%. It didn't work. And there was corruption. So I'd like to point that out first of all. And our votes do count. We get to elect representatives. We're a representative form of government. It's what we do. We elect specialists who help choose the best candidates and the candidates that represent the party's platform. That's all I have to say.
David, how do I reset this?
I have issues with the Count My Vote initiative for many reasons. One, like Jesse talked about, the name is very misleading. I think that all of the votes count in our primary election already, and I don't know why your vote wouldn't count currently. We're not like Africa or other countries that falsify elections, so your count is actually counted down at the clerk's office. And so I think maybe the name is a little bit sensationalized or maybe fake news, kind of, because it's not your vote still counts. A couple of thoughts on, we already have 2 paths to the ballot currently, and this initiative would take one of those paths away, take 50% of your options away. I'm not sure why we would want to limit ballot access. I think that people who want to get on the ballot should be allowed to get on the ballot through the caucus system, and the parties have set up a process that works. Political parties should be allowed to control that process with whatever thresholds they choose. Now, my biggest issue is the effect that this will have on rural Utah. Being from rural Utah, we don't see our elected officials very often, and this, I think, would make it so that candidates that are campaigning would never have to come to our community. They could get all the votes that they needed on the Wasatch. My last comment is, if my vote counts, we have 2 paths to the ballot currently, then why do these kind people that count my vote want to change that process? And if we really look at it, we have to follow the money. And I think that we can argue that these candidates that want to get elected just aren't doing that in the caucus and convention system. So they said, well, let's just get rid of it. And they have plenty of money to do that. And I struggle with that. I think we should allow people who don't have tons of money to go through the caucus and convention system, be elected or nominated through that process, and get on the ballot. That's all I have to say.
Perfect timing.
Jeff, go ahead.
They basically said everything I'd like to say, but my other problems with the Buy My Vote initiative are it really gets rid of the opportunity in a field of 17 or 18 candidates for the people that don't have a lot of money, like just any small town business owner or anybody else from ever running for an office, because they have to have the endorsement of the news media and Gail Miller and John Huntsman if they want to run in the state. And I think that there's a lot of candidates, believe it or not, that aren't extremely wealthy, that are very strong candidates, very educated, and care deeply about their country. And I'd like to save our neighborhood election system. And my neighbors trusted me to be a delegate, but it's not because of my position there. If we can have a term limit on delegates, as far as I can see it, then I'd still like to have the system how it is. So I'd strongly advocate for keeping our system and eliminating this initiative.
I'm Christine Watkins. I am currently a state legislator for this District 69. I have the unusual experience of running as a Democrat, going through that process, going to state convention and winning and losing after 4 years, and realizing at that time that's not where I belonged, and then becoming an active Republican, filing and going through the caucus conventions way, and winning and representing the people that I love and care for. The issue I can see is I personally know how expensive a primary can be, and we were able to weigh the numbers, the experience that we had to decide whether this was something that we really wanted to do. If I have to run against 8 or 9 or 10 people, I'm not going to put that money into it. I'm just not. It's just not worth my time and the money that I may be just throwing down the drain. I think that this is the wrong way to go. We need both 2 pathways so that we have people who are, as Jesse said, just everyday, normal, passionate people about what they want to do and who they want to represent. And I agree. We all become delegates. We go to the caucus convention. We say who we're going to support and what we believe in, and we get voted in as our delegates. And I just think this is the wrong way to go.
Hi, I'm Susie Stromness, and I'm from California originally, and I moved to Utah when Steve, my husband Steve, and I got married in 1999. And it was in our first year of marriage that I began to learn the beauty and the fairness of the caucus system in Utah that seemed to allow nobody like me a chance to be able to be involved in the political process. That was not really possible in California quite the way it is here in Utah. My husband ran for the Republican nomination for governor in the year 2000, and he didn't win, but he received about 14% of the delegate votes. If he had run in California, he would have gotten far less of the votes because we didn't have $1 million to pay for TV or radio advertising. Instead, my husband traveled all around the state and spoke and visited with hundreds, if not thousands, of the approximately 4,000 delegates that there were for him to earn their vote, and let them know what he would do if he was elected. And how How is a non-incumbent, non-rich, non-famous person supposed to get their ideas and messages heard by over 3 million Utah voters without being controlled, unless they're going to be controlled by lobbyists giving them lots of money? Especially at a time when we hear about so much complaining about corruption, waste of tax dollars, and favoritism in government, we need to do what's necessary to encourage good, humble people who will be guided by their principles and values and wanting to do the right thing to work in government. Most often, those who be our best leaders are not wealthy enough or are just too busy with work and family to be able to run for office. The caucus convention system does not favor the incumbent, the wealthy, or the famous. Anyone who wants to run can already get their name straight on the ballot by simply filing to run. They are free to use their to get their message out to voters by whatever means that they choose. Is that 2 minutes?
It's 2 minutes, sorry.
I'm Marcy Underdahl from Price, Utah. And I'd like to know where the money's coming from. Because as a taxpayer, our taxes are going up and up. Locally, the county, we live in a rural area, and I think the increase is over 70% that they're proposing. You know, so this initiative is very expensive. And I also just see a very few people here, so you're appealing to people who are not here and are not passionate and don't know the candidates and they don't care. And I think people like us that go and become delegates, like to the caucus, do care, and we research. The people, they're going to vote for the name they've heard the most, and that's the way it is in many other states. Like Susie said, I've lived in many states. The caucus system is the best. Thank you.
I'm Josh Stocks. I come from South Utah, which is located in Salmon County. It's a very small rural community, maybe 500 people on a good day. I believe the caucus system is the way to go because it allows just a small town boy like myself to be able to go to our local caucus and have an actual say, rather opposed to having somebody that's never even heard of LaSalle, which is probably honestly the majority of Utah, to just go to Wasatch Front. That way and there in LaSalle, we elect our own representatives, so when it comes to the state delegation, we have our own say. We might be outvoted, we might be outnumbered, but I feel that with this current system in place that we have a say. Although being small numbers, as our forefathers wanted when they first set up the electoral college, big picture wise, it's just still not where the population is that gets the votes, being New York, California, where, you know, more or less along the seaboards where the majority of the population is. It's the rural areas still have a say what happens with our country and the path we choose. Thank you.
I'm Steve Strobness. Two things that I'd like to mention at least. One is that I believe that under our existing system there is adequate ballot access, but a lot of the issue here is how will the party get to choose their candidate? And it seems like this may be an effort in part to take advantage of the Republican Party brand by people that may or may not agree with the party platform. My other big concern here, this really seems like socialism or government takeover where there is not a compelling need. I'm glad that so far government has not taken over our churches and how our churches choose their leaders, hasn't taken over quite a few clubs and businesses and told them how they will choose their candidates, their leadership. And for something as important as the party choosing their candidate, I find it very disturbing that we would have a government takeover of this party function. I would like us to keep the true influence of the caucus convention system for those parties that choose to keep it that way. For those parties that do not want to use that system, I think that's up to the party membership of those parties. Thank you.
Anybody else like to go? Okay, thank you again for coming. Again, this will be on the Lieutenant Governor's website probably next week, depending on how long it takes to be posted. And then our PowerPoint presentations on our website at countmyvoteutah.org. We appreciate you taking some time on your Saturday to come out and talk with us. Yes?
So you've been doing this the last day or two?
Yes. We're heading now from here to CBC.